Hello everyone. In this video, I want to talk about final paper guidelines, rubric, and also want to show you how to submit your final paper. So this is our course shell. When you click our course, you will see this page. I want you to click post-residency module to be able to see final guideline, paper guideline and rubric. So you will click final paper guidelines, rubric, and submission portal. Okay, and if you click view instruction, you will be able to see guidelines here. So if you click this icon, the page will open and you will be able to see the guidelines. I think this will also allows you to download the file if you prefer that. Okay, here's a guideline, and I put a link to a website where you can see how to cite sources in APA 7 style. So take a look at this if you're not familiar with APA 7. Also, in the paper, I ask you to submit 2 tables and 1 figure, and also attach Appendix A. So if you want to see how they should look like, you can open each file by clicking this icon. Okay. Also, one of the materials that you have to submit together with your paper is Appendix A, sample annotated bibliographies. I didn't have time to go over annotated bibliographies in detail during the summer residency. So if you want to learn more about what annotated bibliographies are and how they look like, you can click this link and read about it from the website. So this is how the website looks like. Also, I posted my sample template for annotated bibliographies, so you can take a look at this. I usually use Zotero to keep my annotated bibliographies. So I created the video which I explained how I keep my annotated bibliographies using Zotero. So if you are interested in start using Zotero to keep annotated bibliographies, you can look at this video. It's not a requirement for you to learn how to use Zotero for this course, but if you're interested, I highly recommend you to start learning how to use this software during this semester. Now I'm back to the very top of this final paper guidelines, rubric, and submission portal in our course shell. I want to show you a few other sections on this page that are important to you. First, I think I didn't mention the deadline of this assignment, but this is written here. The paper is due on August 31st, midnight, and the total point is you can earn is 30. If you are worried about completing the assignment by the deadlines, you can contact me before August 31st. We can talk about the possibility of incomplete request that you can submit. Okay, so now I'm going to show you this part. Here's the rubric. I will grade this rubric grade your paper using this rubric. When you click this, you should be able to see the rubric. there are one, two, three, four, five criteria that I'll be focusing on in evaluating your work. When you click each criteria, you will be able to see the description of each criteria and then what points you can earn in each criteria and what quality you need to demonstrate in order to gain certain points in each criteria. Um, I highly recommend you to take a close look at this rubric, and then if you have questions about it, please ask me. And I also recommend that you use this rubric um, to self-assess your work before you submit your paper to the submission portal. So after you complete your draft and then check your draft with using the rubric and make sure that you're hitting all the important points to earn maximum point, you can submit your paper. So submission portal is at the very bottom of this page, and you can actually drag file here to submit. And you upload the file and then hit submit. You should be able to, I think, get a confirmation that your paper has been submitted. It usually takes up to 2 weeks for me to evaluate your paper, and then I usually evaluate papers based on the orders I have received them. So this was an explanation of how the submission portal look like. Now I want to open the final paper guidelines and then go over the guidelines more in detail. So when you click that icon on the right hand side of this document, you will be able to see the entire document. So when you open the document, this is what the document should look like. So this is a final paper guidelines. The title is Very First Step of Building My Conceptual Framework and Conducting Literature Review. If you want to change the title on your own, that is fine, but make sure to talk about all the items listed in this guidelines, which are about your creating your conceptual framework and then beginning your first initial literature review on the topic of your interest. So during the residency, we talked about conceptual framework and then also a little bit about literature review. Maybe this visual looks familiar to you. I showed this visual repeatedly during the residency. So as you write this final paper, I want you to think about this visual because this paper is actually about conceptual framework and especially two parts of the conceptual framework. One is researchers' positionality here. That includes researchers' beliefs and interests about the research topic that researchers are interested in, and also statement of the problem and guiding questions and literature review. As you can see in this diagram, these components are related to each other in a very complicated way. So as you write this paper that focuses on your positionality and statement of the problem and the literature review, in which you analyze and then organize literature in a meaningful way, I want you to make sure that these two parts are connected to each other. In our course, we didn't really talk about theories, although theoretical framework is this pink part is usually is central to your conceptual framework, and then you use the lens to select and interpret and organize literature. But since you don't know specific theories that you want to use for your literature review yet, In this course, I ask you to use your beliefs and interests about your research topic that which you developed based on your professional personal experiences as a lens. Next semester, you will take a theory course in which you learn about different theories you might be able to use for your future literature review. If you happen to know certain theoretical theories that are related to your research topic and it resonates with your beliefs and interests about the research topic, go ahead and use that theoretical framework. In this final assignment, you are not required to identify your theoretical framework. Now we're back to the guidelines. So we talked about the title, and the deadline, as I said earlier, is August 31st, and you submit your paper to the final paper submission portal on Blackboard, as I showed you earlier. The length of the paper is 8 to 13 pages, double space, excluding title page and references. There are 4 specific parts you need to have in this paper, and then page numbers for each part is written in this guidelines. Okay, literature requirement. So in order to write this paper, you have to identify and then select literature. In your final paper, you need to refer to at least 20 sources. And out of those 20 sources, 18 needs to be empirical studies. If you're confused about what empirical studies mean, I recommend you to go back to Module 1 in your pre-residency assignment folder. I also want to bring this up to your attention that in order to cite 20 papers and then analyze those in detail in this paper, you will need to retrieve more than 20 papers and then probably quickly read those papers that you retrieved before you narrow down to 20 papers. As I said earlier, this paper should be written in APA 7 style. So if you're not familiar with APA 7, this is a great opportunity for you to learn. You can click this link and then learn about APA citation. So here are the components of your paper. So title page should be written in APA 7, and there are a total of 4 parts, and the first part is introduction. It should be 2 to 3 pages. The introduction part is actually very similar to your Forum Post 5. I have reviewed and then commented on your Forum Post 5, so please incorporate my comments in writing this section of your paper. In your forum post, it was okay for you to just write outline or bullet points because you were brainstorming ideas related to this topic. But this is a final paper. I want you to write everything in a paragraph format. That way you can demonstrate your understanding of the topic and then also show how these ideas you are included in your bullet points are actually related to each other. So this instruction is probably almost the same as instruction for Forum Post 5, so I'm going to skip and then I will let you read it on your own. And let me know if you have any questions. I actually wrote this part more clearly so that we can avoid confusions. So in Forum Post 6 and Forum Post 7, you wrote purpose and or guiding questions for your literature review. I know after you conducted more literature review after you completed Foreign Post 7, you may have kept revising purposes in the guiding questions. So it is okay if you didn't change your purpose statement or guiding questions, but I am assuming that many of you did. So in this section of your paper, I want you to write your most updated purpose and also most updated guiding questions that you ended up using in your search. Okay, now I'm going to talk about part two, process of conducting literature review. This section should be 3 to 5 pages. I want you to start this part by showing table 1, breakdown of articles. So this is what table 1 can look like. So this is title of the table, and then you list database you used. In my case, I used ProQuest, JSTOR, ERIC, Social Citation Index. If you are confused about what databases to use, you can contact the librarian in the library. I also, underneath the database, I listed most updated keywords I used for the search. Social emotional learning, for example, for my search, that's one of the keywords I used. I also used trauma-informed pedagogy, healing-centered engagement, and collective trauma. In my literature review, I used multiple keywords at different stages of the search, but I ended up narrowing down my keywords to these 4. And then this table shows an overview of type of articles I reviewed, and I broke down articles based on whether they were empirical or not. And empirical, I listed qualitative studies, quantitative studies, and other empirical studies like mixed methods and action research. I also listed literature review paper, theoretical paper, and other practitioner paper. For each, I listed number of articles I retrieved, reviewed, and ended up including in this paper. Since you are not allowed to include book reviews or practitioner papers, although I retrieved 1 practitioner paper, I did not review or include in this final paper. So in total, I retrieved 58 articles using those keywords, and then I ended up quickly reviewing 26, and then I ended up including 20. I selected 20 for this paper, and I reviewed those 20 carefully. If you want to review about how to read articles and books for the purpose of literature review, I suggest you to go back to the required reading about literature review titled Doing Your Literature Review. Chapter 3 of the book tells you how to read for literature review. So after inserting the table 1 in part 2 of your paper, I want you to write the description of how you narrow down the literature to 20. In this section, I want you to describe how keywords you used were related to your guiding questions and how you revised those keywords over time, and how the revision of keywords helped you identify articles that are more relevant to your purpose of literature review and or guiding questions. So basically in this section, you will be reflecting on how you identified articles that are very closely related to your goal. In order to write this section more easily, I encourage you to take notes while you are doing your literature review search. In the next section of part 2 of this paper, I want you to write a description of how you reviewed and evaluated each literature and how you took notes. As I emphasized during the residency, your literature review should be more than just summaries of randomly selected empirical studies about a topic that you are interested in. You have to be very intentional about what literature to choose, how to interpret those articles, and to how to analyze and then organize them. So you need to look for certain information or aspects of the studies as you read each article. And so in this section, I want you to describe what information looked for and why. The information you look for is usually related to your purpose, guiding questions, and or your beliefs about the topic. In my case, I wanted to look for articles that talked about how the topic of collective trauma was addressed in trauma-related pedagogy classes. After retrieving articles that are addressed collective trauma using various types of pedagogies related to collective trauma, I read each article quickly, focusing on whether the articles talked about teachers' identities, students' identities, and also trauma positions. For identities, because I believe that individuals have multiple intersecting identities, I paid attention to what type of identities the articles were talking about. I also believe that certain identities are tied to specific trauma-related positions, such as victims, survivors, bystanders, and perpetrators. So I paid attention to those trauma-related positions. Finally, because I believe that collective trauma should be addressed in classrooms based on scientifically proven theories, I also paid attention to whether the studies referred to any scientific studies of trauma or not. So that was my example. You will have your own focus in reading each article based on your beliefs or based on your purpose of guiding questions. So I ask you to be consistent as you start to look for certain information in various articles. Of course, as you change your guiding questions or purposes, your focus of reading should change, and you should keep a record of that if you change. In the next section of description of how you reviewed and evaluated each literature, I want you to describe how you evaluated each article. For example, what criteria you used to decide whether or not to include the articles in your review. For example, in my case, I retrieved empirical studies using three keywords that are related to trauma related pedagogies. Those were social emotional learning, trauma-informed pedagogy, and healing-centered engagement. Although some articles used one of those keywords as the keyword of their articles, I reviewed those articles. I realized that the content of the articles didn't have anything to do with none of those three pedagogies. So I eliminated those studies. Also, I eliminated studies that did not talk about any of the identities or trauma-related positions of teachers or students. The last part of this section in part 2 is showing your annotated bibliography. Actually, this is an example of my annotated bibliography. You just need to submit one sample of your annotated bibliography. You do not have to submit the entire annotated bibliographies. And then you will submit a sample bibliography as an Appendix A after the reference page at the very end of your paper. The next section is about how you archive and categorize the information you found from 20 articles. To show how you archive and categorize the information, you will submit Table 2, a sample summary of literature review sheet. Again, you do not have to submit the entire summary sheet, but just provide a screenshot of a summary table or a part of the summary sheet in Excel or Word. Here is my example of summary sheet. I used Excel to create this summary sheet based on using the information that I put in annotated bibliographies. I will create another video to explain this summary sheet. After you post Table 2, a summary of literature review sheet, you will analyze the summary sheet. I want you to remember that this is the most important part of your final paper. This is a place where you can demonstrate that your literature review is not a random list of summaries of articles that are about a particular topic. You actually intentionally selected literature and interpreted those empirical studies from particular purpose and from particular angles. So in this section, you will answer this major question. What perspectives did you notice as you reviewed the summary sheet? Assuming that you identified at least 2 different perspectives about a topic of your interest, I want you to answer these questions. 1, are there key concepts commonly used by researchers who worked within each perspective? Also, this is more important question. What relationship between research questions, paradigm, theoretical framework, and method did you notice? As you answer this question, I want you to think about an activity we did on the second day of summer residency. In that activity, there were 3 groups and assigned a dissertation to each group, and then you analyzed the dissertation, looking at the connection between researchers' positionality, paradigm, beliefs and assumption about the topic, and the method they used. So as you analyze articles for this paper, I want you to remember that activity and then transfer some of the skills and knowledge you gained from that activity in analyzing and synthesizing articles for this activity, for this assignment. In talking about theoretical frameworks or beliefs and assumptions about the topic, as you may have learned from reviewing the dissertations in an activity during the residency, some researchers do not mention their beliefs or assumptions, or they don't name theoretical frameworks they are actually using in their study. Some of them do. So if they do name theoretical framework or theories, you can pay attention to those theories. and also explanation of that. If they don't refer to any theoretical frameworks or mention explicitly any of their beliefs and assumptions about the topic, you can begin to pay attention to implicit beliefs and assumptions. I think, the exercise you did during the residency should help you identify those implicit ones. Again, please remember that seeing this connection between beliefs and assumptions about the topic and or theories, how that is related to research questions and the method is very important in this part of the final paper. Okay, now we are at the part 3 of the paper, findings from literature review, and this should be 2 to 3 pages. I want you to insert figure 1, visual presentation of final categories of literature. Each category should demonstrate a particular perspective that relates to your literature review guiding questions. So this is an example of my figure 1 visual presentation of the final categories. In this presentation, I found listed 2 categories that I found, and you can name these categories on your own, or you can use the commonly used theories or concepts or keyword to name these categories. And in addition to names of the name of each category, I want you to list literature you found under each category, author's name, and year of publication. If there is no space to put author's name and a publication year, you can submit a separate list of references that fall under each category. After figure 1, you put your description of figure 1. You will describe each perspective you mentioned in the visual presentation, and you will explain how each category is different from each other. If one perspective evolved from another perspective, you can explain the historical development of that perspective. Also, cite key theories, concepts, pedagogies, as well as key persons, their work, and publication year as you describe each, if you can. Then finally, describe which perspective about the topic resonates with yours and why. And in doing so, please refer back to your positionality statement in earlier section of this paper. Part 4, the final section of the final paper is discussion and conclusion, and this should be 1 to 2 pages. In this section, you will answer your literature review guiding questions. It is very important that you answer your questions. You really shouldn't ask questions that you cannot answer. So it is okay to keep revising questions. So make sure that you have questions and answers for those questions in the paper. So anyways, in this section, you will write answers to each of your guiding questions. Also, this is a reflection. I want you to describe whether doing this literature review has changed your beliefs about the topic you had at the beginning of your literature review or not, and explain how or how not. And also, this is another reflection questions. I want to hear your explanation of what you learned from the literature review assignment. And then referring to, I want you to refer to the following points. What you learned about the topic you conducted literature review about, and what you learned about literature review process itself, and what you learned about yourself and being a doctoral student. And also, I want you to write your next goal in the literature review for the rest of the academic year. You will be taking some more topic-based courses in the fall semester, so this is a good opportunity for you to think about how you can continue this literature review to prepare for your, not only for your dissertation, but also various benchmark papers. So that's the content of the final section, final paper. After these section parts, I want you to add references in APA style. The references should be include at least 20 articles. If you ended up reading more than 20 and then using more than 20 articles to write this paper, you can include more than 20 articles in the references. And also, as I said earlier, your sample annotated bibliography goes after references as an Appendix A. So, wow, this was a very long video, but I hope I explained everything in detail. So please watch this video first, and if you have any questions, post your questions in the forum, in the course shell, or sign up for my office hours. I think start doing this literature review following the guidelines will actually give you some ideas on what to do. And also, I believe that forum post 5, 6, and 7 definitely will prepare you to do this, to write this final paper. So actually complete forum post 5, 6, and 7 in that order. Wait for my comments and then write this literature review. But your search for literature review had already begun as you started your forum post 6 and 7. Okay, so I'm looking forward to reading your papers. Thank you.